on in our country right now. And I know people are feeling that sense of anger, that sense of helplessness, that sense that it couldn't get any worse. And every day, every other day, it seems to get worse. And now, more than ever, we need to not just come together, but appreciate where we're at. Appreciate our time, the magnitude of the struggle and the challenges that we are all born into. Why did Standing Rock happen? What happened at Standing Rock? At Standing Rock, I know the majority of the people in this room came to Standing Rock. And I want to say thank you. I know the majority of people in this room and listening paid attention to Standing Rock and participated, even if it was in spirit, even if you just donated something, even if you just retweeted something, if you shared something. You were aware, and that is participation. It's the first time in my life that I ever stepped up to a line that I didn't know existed. There is a line in our society, in our civilization. Put a little asterisk by that word. By the word civilization, there is a line. On one side of the line is an abstraction, a separation of human beings from their connection to the sacred, an exploitation of the labor of human beings. On that side of the line is separation. We know what that feels like. We know what it's like to be separated. We see a certain person exploiting that separation all the time. But on the other side of that line is togetherness, is unity, is an ethos where we have each other's backs. We know that we're all that we can count on. Standing Rock doesn't happen unless bridges are built and bridges are crossed. Not only did tens of thousands of people come in person and walk away from their loved ones, sometimes people hitchhiked to Standing Rock. They were completely willing, and still are, to risk their liberties, their lives, their earning potentials, their reputations, their law licenses, their medical licenses, for the protection of water. Miniwichoni, everybody remembers that. For human beings to be willing to take that conscious, selfless act to sacrifice yourself and to put your body in harm's way to protect an elemental sovereign like water. That is an action of prayer. Not many people get that chance to make that sacrifice in their lifetimes. Yet 850 people decided to make that sacrifice at Standing Rock. Everybody who was there could feel that line. I talked about separation being on the side of that line. Well, capital is on the side of that line. The concept of currency is on that side of that line. The concept of time is on that side of that line. And on the other side of that line is compassion, is sharing. And not, I'm talking about the compassion that provides the foundation for the bravery that it took for mothers to make that sacrifice, because they understand their children have an inalienable birthright and natural right, not only to water, but to healthy ecosystems which sustain us all. I I was looking for how we could encapsulate this. I guess we can call it a common enemy. This corporate, financial, extractive, endless war machine, or complex. And it was one of the first times that I realized that we are all indigenous. Think about that. When we talk about the word colonization, we think about it in terms of white people colonizing or enslaving black and brown people. But that didn't happen until after those who we now learn to call white people were in fact colonized in Europe. Everybody here, everybody in this room, if you trace your roots back far enough, and if you seek out that sacred connection, just like Sitting Bull said, if a man loses something and he goes back and looks for it hard enough, he will find it. And that's your call to action. For some reason, we all ended up in this room together, in this country together, in this hemisphere together, in this planet together. And it's nobody's responsibility but our own to recognize that sacred connection that was severed for most of us. I'm talking about the connection to sacred water, the connection to our sacred sites, to Mother Earth, to a Mother Earth consciousness. I'm talking about the connection that we share with the cosmos, our collective cosmovision that we know we are all a part of. We can feel this cognitive dissonance that is imposed by these forces, these corporate, financial, extractive forces that compel us, coerce our movements, force us to participate in our own destruction. Something inside of us, something instinctual, knows that this system is wrong. This default world has no future. And we know, we can feel it. That's why there's a sense of urgency. That's why progressive values are on the rise. And that's why everybody in this country, in this planet, is already a part of the green movement. Because we are human beings first. I never thought that I would be targeted, be singled out, be surveilled by private military contractors. I never thought that my 13, 14-year-old daughter would have her movements tracked by these private military contractors who are working in tandem with the arms and institutions of our state, our democracy. Arms and institutions that are not only supposed to be objective, but which we thought were designed to serve people. Our systems of law and order, I found out, are not designed to serve people or Mother Earth. Our systems of law and order and our economic reality, our laws and institutions are designed to serve capital and property. And we have to be completely honest about that and willing to challenge anybody who says otherwise. Because if we look around, you can call it two wings of the same bird, two heads of the same snake. It's all of these dichotomies, these false dichotomies. Conservatives over here, liberals over here, patriots, right? You all know this. where I'm a patriot, I'm proud of my military, I'm proud of my law enforcement, I support the thin blue line. You see these false dichotomies just being perpetrated on our populace. And in our country, we have an uncritical mass of people who are unaware of the power that we have. And right now, though the Greens be small, they are mighty. You may not be aware of it, but people are depending on you to be strong. People are depending on you to have a backbone, to not be willing to sell out to corporate interests or NRA interests or any other interests. They are expecting you to be a spark, just a tiny spark. But a tiny spark lights up the darkness of a world beyond our comprehension, beyond what we might be able to imagine right now, especially in the time that we find ourselves. It's so easy right now to fall into those dichotomies, into the white people and black people dichotomy, into this law enforcement versus Black Lives Matter dichotomy. At Standing Rock, not only was I called a terrorist, I was called an eco-terrorist, an indigenous jihadist. If you read the situation reports from that private military contractor, these private military contractors who are children of Blackwater are responsible for corporate-sponsored, state-executed violence. Violence against unarmed, prayerful people of all classifications. They tried very hard and successfully sometimes in the Northern Plains demographic to play on those old prejudices, those dichotomies again that we're talking about, those differences that, yes, we may have been born into, our bodies, our language, our phenotype, our skin color, but there are other differences that are completely human constructs, completely fictions of our imagination, like race, like our religions. Those are differences that we're born into, very powerful differences that deserve respect, but differences that we must liberate from. Differences that we must transcend. It's one of the toughest challenges to try to liberate from your own biases, your own prejudices, your own complexes. It's easier said than done. But things like Standing Rock let us know that we don't have time. We simply do not. My children don't have time. My children don't have time for a state and a county that continues to criminalize peaceful and prayerful water protectors and people who are willing to engage civil resistance. We know there's power in the vote. There's power in the ballot box. There's power in our own minds and in our own connections that we have to make with each other. But there's also power in being called to sacrifice. Sometimes that means that you have to step up to that line. Because we are born into this struggle. Not only a struggle for our spirit and our mind, but a struggle for clean water. We're born into a time where our economic reality doesn't have a place. Not only to consider or appreciate the sanctity of water, but even to appreciate that water is the true foundation of all real economic value. We don't have a true cost economy. Our GDP doesn't include when DAPL is going to spill in the Missouri. In fact, when the spill happens, all of the cleanup action, all of that commercial activity is added to the GDP. It's not subtracted. We don't have a place for when we deforest or when we cause species extinction daily. The whole country is asleep at the wheel. And I know I ran for the United States Congress as a Democrat. And I saw the reality of money completely owning politics, completely owning politicians, completely owning our entire Republican form of government. We have a lot of people who talk about being patriots, who talk about standing up for the United States Constitution, who proclaim that that document, that covenant, is sacred. But the only people that understand that are the people who begin to treat their surroundings as their homeland. You have to look around and value not this country, but this homeland as your own, as our own. It is the only homeland that we got. And right now it seems like we're in bizarro world. It seems like we're in the twilight zone. Like every good thing that's been accomplished by those that have character, integrity, and values, regardless of how you classify yourself in political terms, they're just trying to set everything back. And that guy out there causing these distractions, he's being tokenized right now by those corporate forces that have always sought to devalue us, to dehumanize us, and to continue to encroach upon our rights. Not just our constitutional rights, our birth rights, our natural rights, our human rights, and our treaty rights. And there's a deeper understanding that I think is appropriate for everybody in the room who's here at the Green Party convention, and that is that when we're talking about being separated from the sacred, I want to talk a little bit about that because I've learned in Western civilization that God and nature are separated. In indigenous worldviews or indigenous cosmology or epistemology or mythology or any other kind of ology, God and nature aren't even separated in language.
Amen.
Yes.
You see, in the English language, we conceptually participate in that separation, and that separation leads to loneliness. The separation could lead to a psychosis, especially in times of an existential challenges, multiple existential challenges, not just peak oil, but water shortage and human-caused climate change. That separation will bear apathy. That separation will bear cynicism. It will bear nihilism. And we don't have time for that. I respect everybody's religious view, their worldview, or lack of it, if you want to call it that. If you call yourself Gnostic, or however you want to classify yourself. Maybe the best thing is not to classify yourself, not to classify ourselves, but open your eyes and pay attention to your senses. Otherwise, we're going to end up like that, the president of the Philippines, Duterte, saying, if you can take a selfie with God, I will resign as president. Doesn't that sound like something Trump would say? Just completely debased of any respectable or appreciable worldview. We have but to open our eyes to walk with God. We have but to recognize our human need for water, for a healthy environment. We only have but to open our eyes to recognize the sanctity of our universe. That's all we've got to do. That will compel us to seek the changes that we want, that we need, that we cannot live without in our politics, in our society, in our world. Lastly, I just want to ask everybody, when the candidates were up here, and by the way, thank you for running. Thank you sincerely. It takes compassion and it takes courage. It takes a willingness. In our way, we say that we're going to take bullets in the front and arrows in the back. Sometimes that's what it takes to run for office. You have to put yourself out there, and you are going to take those bullets and those arrows. Look at Jill Stein. Straight up, Jill Stein is still standing. The weight of that corporate apparatus just zeroed in on her. And the same thing is true about me facing 6 years in prison in Morton County, in the state of North Dakota. I'm being targeted there. And the only way that we survive is if we know that people, real people, have our backs. That's the only way that we're encouraged, that we're empowered, that we're authorized. You see, we're authorized in morality, in law, in spirit. The work that we're doing is righteous. And we need to support each other. So maybe there's a way we can get all of our Twitter handles and all of our websites and so forth in one spot. Because all it takes is a critical mass, a small critical mass of people who support